get started. Welcome, welcome. So glad you're here. Thanks for coming out. It's on. It's Thursday, June 20th, the day before the summer solstice here in Chicago, at Unity in Chicago. And we're going to shut the door and start the talk. I like to start each talk, as some of you know who've been here at my talks before, with just some brief statements about what astrology is, what my beliefs are about it, how it works, and why it's worthwhile to gather and have a discussion about it. So what I believe is that astrology is the archetypal language of the soul. And a lot of my work as an astrologer is based on the evolution of a soul, as can be witnessed through an astrology chart. So it's a language of interrelatedness, which reminds us of our intimate connections with a living universe. It reveals our internal kind of cosmic hardwiring, and in astrology, the way we look at a chart, the chart reveals the way that each of us is born into a unique moment of time. When we're born, we take our first breath and we breathe in the energetic signatures of the planets in the solar system, and the positions and how we're all related to it. And those exact, precise measurements, if you will, won't repeat for another 25,920 years. So you're very unique. You know, even if you're a Capricorn, even if someone was born at the same time in a similar location, they've breathed in the energy, but they've breathed it in somewhat differently. It won't repeat in that exact same way. So it's pretty special, and it shows, and so the best way to understand how the energies we're talking about tonight relate to you is to look at them in relation to your own chart. But still, we're going to be talking about this stuff. It's so juicy, you'll get a lot out of it. So every person has the entire zodiac in their chart, but it's distributed in different ways. So even if you were born and you didn't have any planets moving through the sign of Capricorn when you were born, and we're going to be talking a lot about Cancer and Capricorn energy tonight, it's still somewhere in your chart, and the planets as they're moving through now will occupy a certain sector of your chart, even if they're not activating other planets through Capricorn. They might be through different angles, or just by sitting there in that zone in your chart, in that sector of your chart, and activating it in that way. So it's all in there somewhere. So astrology shows where the cosmos and our human psyches interconnect. It's important to remember that the planets are not in charge, and that the same intelligence that created the planets created us. So the planets are not making us do anything. The planetary movements correspond with evolutionary human themes, and those themes have been noticed and witnessed over many millennia of study. So that's how we know, like, well, what does Jupiter typically represent, or Saturn, or what are these different constellations about? Because they've been observed for many, many millennia. And so I also like to remind people that Jupiter, or expressing through a sign, can express over a range of themes, positively or negatively. And that's true for all the planets. So when I do my talks, I try to give examples of some of the range, some of the function, some of the dysfunction. There's a lot going on, so sometimes I move through that kind of quickly. But Jupiter is still going to express in ways that Jupiter expresses. It's not going to express like Saturn. It's not going to express like Uranus or Pluto, but it can express across a range of themes and activate different things within its own range. It's like a color, a range of color. So astrology is the language of the living universe expressing itself, and your astrology chart reveals the language of a living universe expressing itself through your human nervous system. So it's valuable when we get together to discuss the planetary energies. We're kind of bringing them to life. We're kind of activating them. We're invoking them. We're inviting their wisdom into our consciousness so that we can align more fully and co-create with their themes and with their energies. And then they function more like allies. Really, looking up at the planets is like looking in a cosmic mirror. So if something's going on in their interrelationships up here, we'll have similar expressions going on in the earth. And if something's going on in your life, we ought to be able to look up and see, oh yeah, there's something similar going on in the dance up in our solar system, because there's an interrelationship. It's like a cosmic mirror. So the energies represented by the planets will move and express. They will express. So increased awareness helps improve our timing and our ability to function with them and co-create with them, and it helps us to avoid dysfunctional expressions of the energies. And I think having an awareness of the themes, whether you're looking at them day by day, and it still improves our conscious day-by-day interaction. So this is why we do get together to talk. So what I'm going to do tonight in the beginning of our talk is just briefly mention, kind of boom, 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 here's what's going on astrologically for the rest of the summer and the rest of the year. So I'll just mention it. If you're like, oh my God, she's speaking Greek, I just want to say it so you've heard it and you know what's going on. And again, for those of you attending tonight, I will email you a PDF of the slides. So you don't have to frantically say, what were those Mercury retrograde dates, or what was this, what was that? You'll get a copy of that from me. And I'll also try to provide you a link with the video so you can sit and listen to the talk again. So you can kind of let it wash over you and absorb as you go along. Last summer I did a major discussion on planetary retrogrades. We're not going to get into what does it mean when Mercury goes retrograde, but I just want you to have the dates of what's going on for the rest of this year. Primarily tonight we're going to be talking about the chart of the summer solstice tomorrow. The reason for that is twofold. Typically I will look at that to show the energy of a summer, like what's going on this quarter. It sets the tone for the whole summer quarter. But this particular chart is so rich and so full, it kind of shows the energies as they're playing out over the rest of the year. So it's going to be our touchstone for our talk tonight, but I will mention the planetary energies right now that are expressing for the rest of the year. Then we'll dig into the solstice chart and talk about how some of that stuff is playing out. So right now we're going to get into astrology language a little bit. So here are the dates for the remaining Mercury retrogrades this year. We have two more. One is starting on July 7th. All the Mercury retrogrades this year are in water signs. And the next Mercury retrograde has Mercury backing up out of the sign of Leo into the sign of Cancer. I'm going to be talking about this astrological sign of Cancer tonight so much you guys are going to like explode. But it's so important for where we all are right now in our journeys and what's going on and what the universe is trying to help us with. We have 3 remaining eclipses. We had one earlier this year. Each of the remaining eclipses also take place in Cancer and Capricorn. So there's a lot going on with those energies this year. We have another eclipse on July 2nd, and then July 16th, and then we're going to kind of at the end of the talk look a little bit about how so much of the stuff from the summer solstice has shifted out of Cancer, and by the end of the year it's in Capricorn. So we're going to there's a big shift that happens with that, but it's still along the same themes that we're going to be talking about all night. Major planetary events, and again, we talked about this in January, so if you want to go back and review the video, that sometimes is helpful. We talked about a lot of these energies expressing, and now we're smack dab in the middle of them. We talked about how it was going to be in January, and now we've had 5 months of living with this stuff. So we talked about Jupiter square Neptune just a few days ago. It made another exact pass on its 9-month trip through that relationship. So that we will see in the summer solstice chart that we look at. Saturn is sextile Neptune. That made an exact pass a couple days ago. It's, through its 9-month journey through that relationship in the sky. Neptune has been in a lovely, very lovely supportive relationship with the north node of the moon from May. It's pretty close to that relationship through the middle of September. Very cool. It's very supportive. The north node itself is traveling through the sign of Cancer. Again, we talked about that. It started on November 7th, 2018, and it will stay in the sign of Cancer through May 5th, 2020. Mars was quote-unquote out of bounds. We'll talk about that a little bit. And it's been in the sign of Cancer from May 16th to July 1st. So there's another big push on the energy of Cancer. We talked about all those things. The nodes of the moon have a lot to do with the eclipses. Basically, there are 2 points in the sky where the moon's orbit around the Earth intersects with the Earth's orbit around the sun. So there's 2 points exactly opposite one another in the sky. And when the sun and the moon get close to those points, we have eclipses. And every 18 or 19 years or so, the North Node will revisit a sign. So it's been 18 or 19 years since the last time that North Node was in the sign of Cancer. I think it was around 2001. Yeah, something like that. And the North Nodes are so important in astrology because they show us about the movement of the soul and the evolution of the soul and these deeper evolutionary themes that we're all being asked to pay attention to. The Mars out of bounds piece, I'll just mention briefly again, don't get hung up on the astrology of the language, but planets move in latitude from the point of view of the Earth. It looks like they're moving up and down, like how high are they in the sky, how low are they? And when a planet moves beyond the point where the sun usually travels, along that line, along that latitude of declination, we say it's out of bounds. Because it's traveled beyond the point where the sun usually travels, which is like 23 degrees of latitude in some minutes. That doesn't happen that often, but it does happen. So for several weeks this year, Mars was sort of out of bounds. And so it kind of means how it sounds. When a planet moves beyond that normal track, it doesn't act kind of like it's supposed to act. It now kind of has more freedom to not exactly be restricted in the way that it expresses itself. So it's kind of noteworthy when a planet goes into one of those sectors that's called out of bounds. My perception, a lot of times so Mars has to do with action, how we assert ourselves, what we want, how we pursue our goals, how we go after what we want. And it's been moving through the sign of Cancer, which is about feelings. And my perception is that right around that time in April, and again, it just is moving back in bounds now, just today as we're gathering, and it's in the sign of Cancer, moving back in bounds, I kind of feel like Mars has been unavailable. So during those weeks of like trying to assert yourself, trying to move forward on your goals, you might have hit some roadblocks. You might have not had the money, the energy, the willingness, the desire, the support to keep moving forward. So instead of Mars sort of having all these unique and powerful and cool ways of expressing itself, which a lot of times a planet will have when it's out of bounds, I feel like it's just not been available. It's kind of like, sorry, no, I'm taking a break. Or I'm off over here and it's not going to be easy to connect with me. It's like, your friend or your spouse or somebody you're dating who you cannot get to text you back. It just has not been available. So I feel like Mars is coming back now. We'll have more energy and enthusiasm and willingness to do stuff. The challenge over the next few weeks is Mercury's going retrograde. So typically, it's not the best time to move forward with new initiatives, major communications, major purchases. It's considered to be a time to review, maybe clear some clutter, maybe circle the wagons a little bit and get organized and take some time away and reflect and revisit and take a break. So it's sort of like Mars will be ready, but part of us will still need to get organized. And then in August, we do have more planetary energy that's very solid, that sort of supports moving forward in a more direct way. So again, we're going to use the solstice chart as a touchstone for really digging into where we are now and what's all this stuff about Cancer, and why did we call tonight's talk Nourishing and Becoming the Change, and what's all that about anyway. So we're about to get into some of that stuff with the solstice chart. And here's just some more energies that are expressing. This gives an example of just at any given time frame there's a lot going on. But if you look at those August dates when Venus and Mars come together in the sky, we're done with the Mercury retrograde. Venus will be trine Uranus and Taurus. Those are great for new beginnings and for cooperating with other people and joint ventures and getting back on track with your goals and thinking about who you're in partnership with. And they're lovely for romance and time away. And it's a lovely, lovely, lovely time to really dig into your goals and your heart's desires and to be able to think clearly about them and to move forward with those. Here's a picture of what the summer solstice looks like when that north pole is sort of tilted more closely towards the sun, and why we have the energy of the longest day tomorrow and the shortest noontime shadow. If you go and look at your shadow around noon, if we have decent weather, it's like your shortest of the whole year, which is kind of cool. So this is the summer solstice chart, and I will be referring to this chart all night long, and I'll be pointing stuff out because it shows the themes that are so poignant for right now. So up in this top part of the chart, there's the symbol for the sun, that round symbol with the dot in it, that shows where the sun is. And it's just entering the sign of Cancer with the summer solstice. So it begins its 30-day journey through the sign of Cancer. And that upside down horseshoe, that's the north node of the moon. That's been in Cancer since last fall. And then Mars, looks like the sign of males, masculine energy, is also in Cancer, and that's planet Mercury up there in Cancer right now. So not every year do we have that many planets moving through Cancer when the sun first enters Cancer. So it is a lot of energy to have those four pieces up there in Cancer. And directly opposite down here, we have the upside down horseshoe. That's the south node in Capricorn. And we have planet Saturn moving retrograde in Capricorn and Pluto moving retrograde in Capricorn. I could give a talk just on any one of those. And we have talked a lot about those in January, and last year, in 2018, we talked a ton about what does it mean that Saturn's moving through Capricorn for the next 2.5 years. What does it mean that Pluto's already there? It's so powerful. It's so potent. Mm-hmm. And what's especially interesting is how very close together they are now and how very close they are to the south node. And so for most of tonight, when I refer to Capricorn, it's going to be in a way that suggests that we don't want to be doing Capricorn type of stuff, generally, because of that south node. The south node shows what you've outgrown, what have you done too much of, what is worn out, what is now dysfunctional. So we've been having this long journey and trek through Capricorn, trying in many ways to unlearn what is not healthy about the expression of Capricorn energy and to clean that up and release it so that what we're left with is what is healthy. But what we need to do and how we need to do that is by really focusing on Cancer energy. So it's a really cool journey with all this going on. That's what we're going to talk about. And we're also going to talk about this planet, which is Jupiter. It's in its home sign of Sagittarius, where it most loves to be. It's the happiest when it's in Sagittarius. It's been there since last fall. And this is the eastern horizon here in this chart. So as Jupiter, as the planets set and they come around again to rise in the east, Jupiter will be the first one to rise over the next few weeks and maybe months. I forgot to double check. So Jupiter's sort of leading the parade. So that makes it even more prominent. We're definitely going to be talking about it. It's a fun energy, and it's fun to talk about and look at. And we did talk a lot about it in January as well. Right now, Jupiter in the sky is opposite planet Venus, up there in the sign of Gemini, the sign that looks like female energy. And both are in a square or challenging energy with this planet over here, Neptune. So we're going to be talking about what's called a T-square, because we have two planets in opposition making a T with another planet. We'll talk a little bit about the moon in Aquarius. And there's Saturn making a beautiful relationship with Neptune, and Neptune making a beautiful relationship with the North Node. So this is really a very full chart with a lot going on, and it embodies all the stuff I just said is major for the rest of the year. So it's going to be helpful for us to just keep plugging into this particular moment in time and this representation of where are we now and what's going on and why do we need to know about this.